there you are. Still pretending you weren't waiting. How admirable. Truly. The restraint, the composure, the absolute refusal to admit that you missed me. And yes, before you say it, I am aware. We disappeared again. Vanished mid-scandal like a duke avoiding a paternity test or a countess conveniently retreating to the countryside just before her creditors arrive. For that, I offer you my most heartfelt apology, which I assure you I do not mean. Because let us be honest, absence has only made this story richer, more dangerous, more flavorful. And oh, my loves, what a mess we have returned to. Now, while we were away, society did what it always does when something truly catastrophic is unfolding. It rebranded it. In Hull, they are calling it progress. In Alpes de Pierre, they are calling it stability. And in certain elite circles, those deliciously blind velvet-draped circles, they are calling it inevitable. I attended a private dinner not long ago. Yes, I do get invited everywhere, thank you for noticing, where a certain industrial baron declared quite confidently that the future belongs to those who can standardize unpredictability. Standardize unpredictability. I nearly choked on my wine, because what he meant, what they all mean, is this. They want a world where nothing resists them. Nothing surprises them. Nothing lives beyond their control. And now we have a man, our dear Maestro Valerius, who has decided to make that fantasy real. But here is where it becomes deliciously personal. Because tonight is not about grand machines or philosophical ambitions. No. Tonight is about a man and his butterflies. Archibald Sutter, chief archivist. Invisible man, keeper of secrets no one dares speak aloud. A man so painfully ordinary that he became extraordinary simply by being overlooked. And yet, like so many men in positions of quiet power, he has a vice. A tender vice, butterflies. Fragile, wild, untamable beauty, pinned, preserved, controlled. Tell me, does that not sound familiar? Men like Sutter always believe they are curating beauty. They never admit they are imprisoning it, and when that illusion is shattered, when something dares to tamper with their carefully constructed world, oh, they unravel. Which is precisely where our dear Alianor steps in. Now let's pause for a moment and truly appreciate her transformation. Once a lady of refinement, now lurking in alleyways, waiting in the cold, weapon in hand. Do you feel it at that shift, that line she has crossed? Because make no mistake, this is where things change. This is where necessity begins to erode identity, where survival demands something uglier. And while Hull marches forward in its perfectly measured rhythm and Valerius refines his quiet apocalypse, Alianor is about to discover a truth that society never prepares you for. Power is not clean. Victory is not elegant. And sometimes the only way to protect something beautiful is to become something dangerous. Now then, let's see how far she's willing to go.
Chapter 8. The Price of Resonance. 1. The Butterfly Man's Evening. Archibald Sutter was a man who had perfected the art of invisibility through obsession. In the bustling hierarchy of the Acheron Exchange, he was regarded as competent, dull, and utterly predictable, the perfect qualities for a chief archivist entrusted with the company's most dangerous secrets. No one suspected that beneath his gray wool waistcoat and precisely knotted cravat beat the heart of a collector, a man whose true passion fluttered behind glass in the climate-controlled conservatory of his townhouse. The butterflies were his escape from the sterile world of ledgers and sigil keys. In their jewel-like colors and impossible patterns, he saw a beauty that defied the syndicate's relentless pursuit of order. They were wild things, captured and displayed, but still carrying the memory of rainforests and mountain meadows. He told himself he was preserving them, studying them. In truth, he worshipped them. Which was why the discovery in the crate from the Kestrel struck him like a physical blow. The wooden boxes, so carefully packed, should have contained movement, the delicate rustle of living wings. Instead, they held stillness. His beautiful Morphos, his prized swallowtails, lay motionless on their branches, their colors already beginning to dull. Not dead. He checked each one with trembling fingers, holding them to the light, feeling for the faintest pulse of life, but suspended, trapped in a sleep from which they did not stir. Sedated, he murmured, the word escaping his lips like a curse. Someone had tampered with his shipment. Someone had violated his sanctuary. He spent the morning in a frenzy, trying every revival technique he knew. Warmth, sugar water on a pin, gentle vibration. Nothing worked. The butterflies slept on, oblivious, their beauty fading by the hour. By noon, his hands were shaking with a mixture of grief and rage. By evening, he had made his decision. He would go to the Golden Mean. He would drink. He would forget, for a few hours, the silent rows of glass cases in his conservatory. It was precisely the reaction Alianor had counted on. 2. The waiting. The tannery district at night was a labyrinth of abandoned buildings and narrow alleys, the air still thick with the ghost of old chemicals. Alianor had chosen her position carefully, a recessed doorway in a building that had once housed a leather finisher's shop, offering a clear view of the route Sutter would take from the club to the exchange. Behind her, a rusted iron ladder led to the rooftops, an escape route if needed. She had been waiting for 3 hours. The cold seeped through her merchant widow's cloak, despite the layers beneath. Her fingers, wrapped around the small leather-wrapped sap, were numb. She had run the scenario through her mind 100 times. Sutter would be alone, as Pendleton promised. He would be distracted, possibly unsteady, after an evening of drinking his grief. She would step out, block his path. A quick, clean blow to the back of the head, not enough to kill, just to stun. While he was down, she would take the sigil key from his belt, press it into a block of soft wax to capture its shape, and be gone before he could raise an alarm. The key itself would remain with him. He might not even realize it had been borrowed until it was too late. It was a good plan. It relied on surprise, precision, and the target's predictability. It also required her to become someone she did not recognize. The footsteps came at last, echoing off the wet cobblestones. Alianor pressed herself deeper into the shadows, peering around the doorframe. A single figure emerged from the gloom, walking with the careful, deliberate gait of a man trying to appear sober. Gaslight from a distant lamp caught his features, the wire spectacles, the gray hair, the expensive but rumpled coat. Sutter. He was muttering to himself, his words carried away by the wind. Something about irreplaceable specimens and who would do this. His hand clutched a silver flask, from which he took frequent, angry pulls. Alianor waited until he was directly opposite her hiding place. She stepped out. Master Sutter. He spun, the flask clattering to the ground. His eyes, magnified by the spectacles, widened in shock. What do you... She moved before he could finish, crossing the distance in 3 quick strides. The sap was in her hand, its weight familiar now from hours of nervous gripping. She swung. But Sutter, despite his grief and drink, was not entirely helpless. Years of navigating syndicate politics had honed a survival instinct. He ducked, not fast enough to avoid the blow entirely, but enough that the sap glanced off his shoulder rather than his skull. He yelped, stumbling backward, and shouted, a raw, desperate cry for help. Guards! Help! Robbers! Alianor cursed under her breath. The element of surprise was gone. She had seconds before the night watch, never far in the new hull's efficient order, would converge. She made a split-second decision, abandoning stealth for speed. She lunged forward, not to strike again, but to grapple. Her hand found his belt, fingers scrabbling for the key. Sutter fought back, surprisingly strong for a man of his age and profession. They staggered in the alley, a grotesque dance of desperation. His fist caught her ribs, a solid blow that drove the air from her lungs. She responded with a knee to his thigh, forcing him to buckle. Her fingers closed around a cold, metallic shape, the sigil key, a complex cylinder of brass and crystal hanging from a chain. She pulled. The chain snapped. She had it. Sutter, realizing what she'd taken, screamed again, a wordless animal sound of terror and rage. "The key! Stop her! She has the key!" Alianor shoved him hard, sending him sprawling into a pile of discarded barrels. She turned and ran, not toward the rooftop escape, too slow, too exposed, but deeper into the tannery district, into the maze of abandoned buildings where she could lose herself. Behind her, whistles blew. The night watch was coming, and they were faster than she had anticipated. 3. The chase. The alleys became a blur of darkness and angles. Alianor ran as she had not run since childhood, her lungs burning, her side aching from Sutter's blow. The stolen key was clutched in her hand, its crystal facets cutting into her palm. She ducked through a gap between two buildings, emerged into a courtyard filled with rusted vats, scrambled over a low wall, and found herself in a narrow passage that smelled of stale urine and decay. The whistles were closer now. Voices shouted directions. They were spreading out, hurting her. She needed to think, to become the strategist again, not the panicked prey. Pendleton had given her maps of this district. Where was she? The landmarks were obscured by darkness and adrenaline. She pressed herself into a shadowed alcove, forcing her breathing to slow, her mind to clear. The old rendering sheds are to the east. The river is west. The exchange is north, but that's where they'll expect me to go. South leads to the poor quarter, the warrens where the displaced workers live. If I can reach those, I can disappear. She chose south. Slipping out of the alcove, she moved at a crouch, keeping to the darkest edges of the passage. The whistles seemed to be receding, then sharpened again. They had changed direction. They were following her. A new sound joined the chase, a rhythmic mechanical clanking. Alianor's blood froze. Automata. Pendleton had warned her. The night watch used them for pursuits, their clockwork legs tireless, their sensor arrays tuned to detect human warmth and movement. She risked a glance back. At the far end of the passage, a shape emerged from the gloom, taller than a man, constructed of brass and iron, its head a featureless dome with a single glowing crystal lens. It moved with terrifying speed, its legs pistoning in perfect, silent coordination. It was hunting her. Alianor ran. There was no other choice. She burst out of the passage into a wider street, the poor quarter stretching before her, a maze of leaning tenements, washing lines, and open sewers. She plunged into it, weaving between the ramshackle buildings, praying the automaton's bulk would slow it. It did not. The mechanical hunter crashed through obstacles, splintering a wooden cart, crushing a pile of discarded furniture. Its lens swept left and right, tracking her. She could hear its internal mechanisms whirring, a sound like 1,000 watches all ticking at once. Desperation clawed at her. She needed to lose it, to hide, to think. A narrow alley between two tenements gaped before her. She darted into it, only to find her way blocked by a high wall. Dead end. She spun, pressing her back to the cold stone. The automaton appeared at the alley's mouth, its lens fixing on her with cold precision. It raised one mechanical arm, and from its wrist extended a long, needle-like probe. It began to advance. Alianor's hand closed around the one-shot pistol in her pocket. It was useless against armor. But perhaps the crystal on the key? The automata responded to resonance patterns. If she could disrupt its frequency? She had no time to theorize. The machine was 10 feet away. 5. She pulled out the key, holding it before her like a talisman, and thought at it. Not a coherent thought, but a desperate, wordless prayer to the land, to the Warden, to any power that might hear. She remembered the green fire of Hawksmere, the singing of the crystal grove, the deep, contented pulse of a world in balance. She poured that memory into the key, willing it to become something other than a passcode. For a moment, nothing happened. The automaton reached for her, its probe extending. Then the key sang. It was a thin, reedy sound, barely audible, a ghost of the Dominion's deep music, but it was enough. The automaton froze, its lens flickering. Its internal whirring stuttered, then resumed, but now it was a confused, searching sound. It took a step back, then another. Its programming was conflicted. The resonance it detected was authorized, but it did not match any known signature. The machine was designed to obey the key's frequency. It could not reconcile the key's song with its orders to hunt. Alianor did not wait for it to resolve the paradox. She slipped past the frozen automaton, back into the maze of the poor quarter. This time, she did not run blindly. She moved with purpose, heading for a place Pendleton had marked on his map, a disused warehouse by the river, a known haven for those who wished to disappear. Behind her, the automaton remained motionless in the alley, its lens still flickering, its gears grinding softly as it tried, and failed, to understand what had just happened. 4. The Counting House. In the Acheron Exchange, the Special Acquisitions Archive was not a room but a vault. It occupied an entire sub-basement level, its walls lined with copper to block unauthorized resonant frequencies, its door a solid foot of iron alloy. The door's lock was not mechanical, but resonant, a series of tuned crystal chambers that would only align when the correct sigil key emitted its specific frequency pattern. Sutter's key, now in Alianor's possession, was the only one that could open it. She had waited until the following night to attempt the infiltration, spending the daylight hours in the warehouse by the river, nursing her bruised ribs and studying Pendleton's documents. The Factors Network had provided her with a crude map of the exchange's interior, gleaned from bribed clerks and architectural plans. She knew the guard rotations, the patrol patterns, the location of the one access point to the sub-basement that was not constantly monitored. A service ladder used for maintenance, accessible through a disguised hatch in the loading bay. Getting into the exchange itself was the first challenge. She approached not as Martha Hill, but as a cleaning woman, her face smudged with grime, her clothing replaced with a rough woolen dress and apron purchased from a rag seller. A bucket of soapy water and a scrub brush completed the disguise. She joined the stream of workers entering the service entrance at dusk, her head down, her movements tired and automatic. No one looked twice. Inside, she separated from the others, ducking into a supply closet until the corridors emptied. Then she moved, counting doors, checking her mental map. The loading bay was in the rear of the building, a cavernous space filled with crates and the lingering smell of horses. The maintenance hatch was in the floor, beneath a stack of empty pallets. Moving the pallets was agonizingly slow. Each one had to be lifted, carried, placed silently. Her ribs screamed protest. Twice she heard footsteps and froze, pressing herself into the shadows. But no one came. Finally, the hatch was exposed. It was a simple iron ring set into a square of concrete. She pulled. It rose with a groan that seemed deafening in the silence. Below, a ladder descended into darkness. She climbed down, the cold air of the sub-basement rising to meet her. At the bottom, a narrow corridor stretched before her, lit by dim, phosphorescent crystals set into the walls. The air was dry, still, tasting of old paper and metal. At the corridor's end loomed the vault door. Alianor approached it, the sigil key heavy in her hand. She inserted it into a slot in the door's center, feeling the crystals within align, humming softly. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep, resonant click, the door swung inward. The Special Acquisitions Archive was smaller than she expected. A single circular chamber, lined with shelves of bound ledgers, rolled blueprints, and sealed wooden boxes. In the center, on a pedestal of polished obsidian, rested a single object, a large leather-bound folio stamped with the Acheron Exchange's crest and the words, Project Ethelred, Complete Specification. She had found it. 5. The Blueprint of Silence. The hours that followed were a fever dream of information. Alianor worked by the light of a small lantern, her eyes scanning page after page of dense technical script, alchemical formulae, and architectural drawings. The folio was comprehensive, a complete record of the Stilling engine's design, from Fry's initial theoretical work through Valerius's refinements to the current operational configuration. What she read made her blood run cold. The engine was not merely suppressing the Omega Seal's song. It was recording it, analyzing it, and reproducing it in a controlled, attenuated form. Valerius had discovered that the Seal's resonance, when filtered through the engine's crystalline arrays, could be used to impose order on other chaotic systems. The stilling was just the first phase. The second phase, already in development, was broadcast. The folio contained diagrams of harmonic repeaters designed to be placed at key geological points across the continent. These repeaters would receive the engine's processed frequency and rebroadcast it, creating a network of enforced silence that would gradually extend over entire regions. Valerius called it the Great Harmonization, a world where wild magic, unpredictable weather, and even spontaneous natural events would be smoothed into predictable, manageable patterns. And at the center of it all, the Omega Seal itself would be consumed. The diagram showed its eventual fate: the crystal heart of the mountain, slowly dissolved by the engine's resonance, its essence drawn out and used until nothing remained but a hollow, silent cavern. There was more. A section marked Residual Synchronization Effects detailed the engine's unintended consequences, the harmonic theft that was draining the other seals, including Hawksmere. The Maestro knew about this. He considered it a feature, not a bug. By weakening the other seals, he ensured they could never resist when his broadcast network eventually reached them. But the most chilling discovery was a separate document tucked into the back of the folio, written in Valerius's own hand. It was a personal memorandum, not meant for Acheron's eyes, discussing the ultimate application of his research. The seals are the planet's immune system. They respond to imbalance by generating corrective resonance, what the primitives call magic, or divine intervention. By suppressing them, we do not merely gain control of local phenomena. We gain control of reality's capacity to heal itself. We become, in effect, the planet's new brain, its new will. Fry dreamed of power. I dream of governance. A world without chaos, without surprise, without the terrifying freedom of natural law. A world where every event is anticipated, every outcome calculated, every soul pacified by the gentle, ceaseless hum of perfect order. The Crimson Mechanism was never meant to be a machine. It was meant to be a philosophy made manifest. And I, Valerius, will be its first high priest. Alianor closed the folio, her hands shaking. This was not ambition. This was madness of a cosmic scale. Valerius didn't want wealth or power in the conventional sense. He wanted to rewrite the fundamental laws of existence, to turn the living, breathing, singing world into a clockwork toy. She had to get this information out. She had to warn Eamon, to show the others the true scope of what they faced. But as she tucked the folio into her pack and prepared to leave, a sound stopped her cold. Footsteps, multiple sets, coming down the corridor toward the vault. 6, the trap springs. Alianor blew out her lantern and pressed herself against the shelves, her heart hammering. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by voices. Certain the key was used. The automated log showed an access at 2247. Positive factor, and Sutter claims his key was stolen during an assault. The woman who took it, she's still in the building. A pause, then a new voice, cold and amused. Then she's in the vault. Seal the corridor. Deploy the dampening field. I want her alive. I want to know who sent her. Alianor recognized that voice. She had never heard it before, but she knew it with the certainty of nightmare. Maestro Valerius. He was in Hull. He was here, in the exchange. The corridor beyond the vault door suddenly hummed with a new frequency. The dampening field. It pressed against her senses like a weight, muffling sound, dulling thought. She could feel the sigil key in her pocket growing warm, its crystal struggling against the field. She was trapped, but she was also Alianor de Clairvaux, who had faced siege and betrayal, and the unmaking of her world. She did not panic. She assessed. The vault had no other exits. The corridor was sealed. The dampening field would soon make her unconscious if she stayed. Her only chance was the element of surprise. To burst out, use the key to disrupt the automata she knew would be waiting, and run like hell. It was a terrible plan. It was the only plan. She drew the one-shot pistol, checked the load. She palmed the sigil key, feeling its faint warmth. She took a deep breath, said a silent prayer to the Warden, and kicked the vault door open. The corridor blazed with light. 3 automata stood there, their lenses fixed on her. Behind them, a tall, slender figure in gray robes, Valerius, watched with detached interest. He raised a hand as if to conduct an orchestra. Ah, The little thief emerges. How... Alianor didn't wait for him to finish. She thrust the sigil key forward, screaming into it with her mind, with her memory of Hawksmere, with every ounce of desperate will she possessed. The key responded, its song flaring bright and wild, a defiant blast of green chaos in the gray, ordered corridor. The automata staggered. Their lenses flickered, then went dark. One of them toppled, its gears grinding to a halt. Valerius's calm expression flickered into something like surprise, and then, disturbingly, interest. Remarkable. You're not just a thief. You're a carrier. You bear the alpha resonance. You've touched a living seal. He took a step forward, his eyes gleaming behind his smoked quartz lenses. You're even more valuable than I hoped. Alianor fired the pistol. The shot went wide. She was no markswoman, but it forced Valerius to duck, buying her a second. She ran, sprinting down the corridor, leaping over the fallen automaton, hurtling toward the service ladder. Behind her, Valerius's voice echoed, calm and amused. After her, gently, I want her intact. The remaining automata lurched into motion, their damaged systems compensating. Alianor reached the ladder and climbed with desperate strength, her burned hands finding purchase on the cold iron rungs. She burst into the loading bay, scattered a stack of crates behind her, and fled into the night. The automata followed. But now she was outside, in the maze of the city, and she had one advantage they did not. She was unpredictable. She ducked into alleys, doubled back, climbed walls, crawled through drainage pipes. The mechanical hunters pursued, but they were designed for order, for predictable patterns. She gave them chaos. By dawn, she had lost them. By noon, she was in a safe house arranged by the Factor's network, the folio clutched to her chest, her body trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. She had the blueprint. She had seen the enemy, and he had seen her. The war had just become personal. 7, the echo in the grove. 300 miles away, in the Warden's dominion, Eamon woke from a nightmare with a scream trapped in his throat. The green veins in his skin pulsed with violent light. He had seen her, Alianor, running through a city of gears, pursued by metal men, and watching over it all, a tall figure in gray who smiled as if at a beloved student. The Warden's distress was a physical pressure, a warning. The enemy knew. The enemy had seen. The enemy was coming. Eamon rose from his bed and walked to the window, looking out at the singing grove, at the geometric blight in the distance, at the faint shimmer of the border where the world's song grew thin and wrong. Somewhere out there, Alianor was fighting alone, and somewhere closer, the resonance was building toward something terrible. He placed his hand on the cold stone of the wall, feeling its pulse, its fear, its desperate hope. "Hold on," he whispered, not knowing if she could hear, if anyone could hear. "We're coming. We'll find a way." The stone warmed under his palm. The Warden, in its slow, planetary way, had heard, and it was listening now, with an attention it had not given since the siege. The gears were turning, the shadow was spreading, and the price of resonance was about to be paid in full.
Oh, how unfortunate. And by unfortunate, I mean absolutely inevitable. You saw it, didn't you? That moment, that precise, exquisite instant when everything shifted from clever to consequential. Alianor did not simply steal a key, she announced herself, to the wrong man, in the wrong place, at the worst possible time. And now the game has changed. Because up until this point, our dear Maestro has been operating on theory, on projections, on beautifully sterile assumptions about how the world should behave. And then, like a discordant note in his perfect little symphony, she appears. Alive, defiant, resonant. Oh, you should have seen his mind in that moment. I can practically taste it. Not anger, not fear, interest. And that, my loves, is far more dangerous because men like Valerius do not destroy what fascinates them. They study it, dissect it, repurpose it. And now he knows something he did not know before. The Alpha Seal is not just active, it has chosen a side. And worse, it has touched someone, Alianor is no longer just a noblewoman playing at espionage. She is now a variable, a problem, a possibility. And in the world Valerius is building, possibilities must either be controlled or eliminated. Meanwhile, let us not forget our other stage, Hawksmere. Ah, yes. While Alianor dances with danger in a city of gears, Eamon is waking to something far more intimate. Connection. Do you understand what just happened? He saw her, not imagined, not guessed, felt, across distance, across interference, across a world slowly being choked into silence. That is not coincidence, that is escalation. Because if Valerius is building a network to control the world, then Hawksmere is becoming something else entirely. A counterpoint, a living resistance, a song that refuses to be rewritten. And here is the part society will never understand, because it cannot be measured, regulated, or monetized. Connection is unpredictable. It is inefficient, messy, emotional, and therefore it is powerful. Far more powerful than any machine designed to suppress it. But power always comes with a cost. And tonight, we have learned exactly what that cost looks like. Bruised ribs, stolen identities, moral lines crossed without ceremony, and most importantly, exposure. Because secrets are safest when no one is looking. And now, everyone is looking. The Exchange knows, the Maestro knows, the machine is adapting, and Alianor. Oh, my poor, brilliant, relentless Alianor. She has just stepped onto a board where every move is watched by a man who believes himself the architect of reality itself. And you know what makes this truly scandalous? Not that he might win. Number. It's that part of the world wants him to, because control is comforting, silence is easy, and freedom is terrifying. So here we are, a thief with a blueprint, a maestro with a vision, a world trembling between song and silence, and somewhere in the distance, the first notes of something much larger are beginning to form. Oh, don't look so nervous. This is the part where things become interesting. And trust me, we are only just getting started.